the back end of every bomber, there was an entrance door about 3 foot square, which opened inwards, and you had to climb in there and then go along the fuselage to wherever your position was. And it was always my job, the flight engineer, to make sure, first of all, I used to check that the tyres were inflated properly. I used to check that the flaps were all working on the aircraft. I used to check all the undercarriage, that everything was all right, and then check with the pilot on the engines, and we'd start each of them up. And once we were satisfied that everything was working, and I could write on my chart, engine number 1, oil pressure and everything okay, 2, 3 and 4. Then he would say, "Okay, Doug, are we ready to go?" And I'd say, "Yes. Yes, Mitch, we are, off we go." Or he would call up for permission to start taxiing out for takeoff. Leeming, where we were stationed, was a permanent station before the war. It was an RAF station. But the whole of North Yorkshire was taken over by the Canadians, and the RAF were all stationed in Lincolnshire. We had leave every 7 weeks. None of them had anywhere to go. So my mother and father said, "Whenever they are on leave, Douglas, bring them up here." So every 7 weeks, my mother used to have 7 airmen to look after and feed. But she benefited from them, because the people in Canada used to send food parcels over, thinking that on the stations we weren't getting well fed. But of course we were. So the food parcels used to end up with my mother and father. And I always remember my mother saying, she used to say, "My neighbours can't understand it, why whenever they've come to my house," she said, "I've got butter to put on their bread," and things like that. Whereas they didn't have any, they had margarine. But my mother she used to get the parcels, because we didn't want them. So the Canadian food parcels went to my mother. She had a lovely war, did my mother, with all these food parcels.